June 6, 1944, Normandy, France, 6:47 a.m. The waters beyond Omaha Beach turn crimson. Corporal James Mitchell observes his third demolition squad vanish in an eruption of water and metal fragments. Another teller mine, 5 more soldiers lost. The German coastal fortifications are eliminating his sappers more efficiently than gunfire. Mitchell's superior, Captain Robert Hayes, hunches beside him in the breaking waves, yelling above the pandemonium. Their orders demand clearing a 50-meter pathway through the explosive field before reinforcements arrive. That's 14 minutes away. At this pace, every soldier will perish before 20 meters are secured. The numbers tell a grim story. Among the 16 Navy combat demolition units arriving with the initial assault, 12 have suffered losses surpassing 60%. German forces have positioned roughly 4,000 mines throughout the 5 invasion zones. Established procedure demands sappers advance on their stomachs with bayonets, testing the sand at 45-degree angles until metal is struck. Each explosive device requires 3 to 5 minutes to find and disarm. The calculation is merciless and clear, time is insufficient, and manpower is inadequate. Captain Hayes remains unaware that 100 meters to his left, a 22-year-old private from Iowa is moments away from resolving a challenge that has claimed demolition specialists since 1939. Hayes also doesn't realize this private possesses no technical education, no explosives qualifications, and no authorization to approach a minefield. Thomas Becker is his name, and within the next 6 hours, his improvised container method will preserve roughly 200 Allied soldiers' lives. The German teller mine embodies 5 years of deadly engineering evolution. At 11 pounds with 12 pounds of TNT inside, it detonates with merely 200 pounds of force applied. The Wehrmacht has positioned them in irregular arrangements across every invasion coastline from Norway to Greece, and Allied losses from these devices have reached crisis levels. By June 1944, the Allies have attempted every solution. British sappers created the Bangalore torpedo, an extended explosive pipe thrust beneath wire barriers. It performs exceptionally against barbed wire. Against concealed explosives, results are unpredictable. Sometimes it causes chain detonations, sometimes not. The malfunction rate stays near 40%, and each malfunction creates another blast crater, another postponement, another infantry unit trapped by German automatic weapons. American forces tested trained canines. The concept was sophisticated. Dogs could detect the explosive chemicals and indicate mine positions without activating the trigger mechanisms. Practically, the animals became terrified during bombardment, and multiple ran toward their handlers with explosives affixed to their gear. The initiative was discreetly terminated after 3 handlers perished in preparation incidents. The French resistance proposed using extended wooden rods to search ahead while prone. This diminished fatalities but extended discovery time to 7 minutes per explosive. At Anzio, in January 1944, this approach consumed an entire day's progress. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel personally examined the engagement records and instructed his sappers to position explosives even more thickly along the Atlantic fortifications. In May 1944, 30 days before D-Day, the Allied Expeditionary Force assembled a specialized engineering summit in Portsmouth. 23 demolition specialists, including Colonel Arthur Trudeau of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, examined every mine discovery approach in the Allied inventory. Their confidential document, made public in 1974, finished with blunt wording. No current method permits swift mine elimination during active engagement. Anticipated losses for coastal demolition teams surpassed 75% within the initial hour of any shore assault. The agreement was absolute. Rapid mine identification was functionally unattainable. You could search methodically and endure, or you could advance rapidly and perish. No alternative existed. The implications couldn't be greater. Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower has wagered the entire operation on capturing the coastline within 6 hours. Should the demolition crews fail, should the explosive fields remain uncleared, 35,000 soldiers will be confined in the killing grounds. German reinforcements will arrive. The invasion will collapse. The conflict might be forfeited. Private Thomas Becker shouldn't be at Omaha Beach. He should be in Iowa, managing his father's dairy operation. He volunteered in March 1943, 3 months past his 18th birthday, and the Army placed him in the 146th Engineer Combat Battalion due to a paperwork mistake. Someone confused farm equipment operator with heavy equipment operator on his enrollment document. Becker possesses no technical degree. He never completed secondary education. His specialized instruction consists of 6 weeks at Fort Beaver, Virginia, where he mastered digging defensive positions, installing barbed wire, and recognizing various explosives visually. His trainers recorded in his documentation that he demonstrates resourcefulness but lacks theoretical grounding. One noted, sufficient for basic labor, unsuitable for specialized assignments. What Becker does possess is extensive practical troubleshooting experience. On an Iowa dairy operation, improvisation becomes essential. When machinery fails, you repair it with available materials. When livestock becomes trapped in mud, you devise extraction methods without causing injury. When weather endangers crops, you operate rapidly and cleverly. Becker's moment of realization arrives at 6:52 a.m., 5 minutes following Mitchell's third team's destruction. He's crouched behind a damaged landing vessel, observing another sapper crawl forward with a bayonet. The soldier is perspiring, trembling hands, making cautious, probing movements at the sand. Insufficient speed, far too slow. Becker observes the waves advancing. He observes the sand. He observes the dispersed equipment from demolished landing craft. Petroleum containers, ammunition crates, vacant water containers. His brain forms a link. The type of instinctive insight emerging from years addressing challenges with constrained resources. He seizes an empty container, the type employed to remove water from landing craft. Military issue, galvanized steel, approximately 2 gallons capacity. He fills it partially with ocean water. Then he performs an action that will appear self-evident retrospectively, but represents innovation in the present. He begins dispensing water onto the sand ahead of him, observing its movement. Where sand remains undisturbed, water absorbs uniformly. Where something lies buried, an explosive, a stone, anything, the water accumulates and flows at an altered trajectory. The density variation is understated yet observable. Becker dispenses another container. The configuration repeats. He's discovered a method to perceive underground objects without physical contact. Becker doesn't request authorization. Time doesn't permit authorization. He refills his container and begins advancing, dispensing water in a systematic pattern, monitoring the flow. 3 meters forward, the water accumulates strangely. He designates the position with driftwood and circumvents it. 5 meters forward, another irregularity, another designation. Behind him, Corporal Mitchell has observed. He crawls over, anticipating discovering another deceased private. Instead, he discovers Becker methodically charting the minefield using ocean water in a container. "What are you doing?" Mitchell yells. Identifying explosives, Corporal Becker responds, maintaining focus. "That's not standard procedure." "Neither is perishing in the initial 10 minutes, Corporal." Mitchell observes for 30 seconds. Becker has designated 7 potential explosive positions in the duration required for a conventional probe crew to locate one. The configuration corresponds with German mine positioning doctrine. Staggered formations, 60-centimeter intervals. Mitchell reaches a command determination that will either merit commendation or court-martial proceedings. "Continue," he states. "I'll retrieve additional containers." Within 10 minutes, Becker has 6 soldiers operating his approach. They advance in formation, dispensing water, designating irregularities, progressing. A combat sapper named Robert Kowalski cautiously tests one of Becker's designated positions. His bayonet contacts metal at 8 inches depth. It's a teller mine, precisely where the water configuration indicated. They verify 3 additional designations, 3 additional explosives, the approach functions. Captain Hayes arrives at 7:15 a.m. He's been arranging fire coverage and hasn't witnessed Becker's breakthrough. What he witnesses now is a unit of sappers progressing through an explosive field without testing equipment, transporting containers of ocean water. His expression turns furious. "Who sanctioned this lunacy?" he bellows. Mitchell advances forward. "Sir, Private Becker created a new identification approach. It's functioning, it's not protocol. Where's the manual for this? Where's the technical validation? Sir, we've verified 4 explosives in 6 minutes. This violates regulations. Hayes is bellowing now, and multiple nearby soldiers turn to observe. You cannot diverge from sanctioned procedures in an active combat area. This constitutes court-martial conduct. Becker, still gripping his container, speaks calmly. Captain, we're eliminating explosives more rapidly than anyone else on this coastline. You wish to halt us? Hayes looks at Becker, at the designations covering the sand, at the sappers still operating. He looks at the corpses floating in the waves from the crews using sanctioned procedures. His expression transforms. How many have you eliminated? He inquires. Designated 14, verified 7, Mitchell reports, 0 losses. Hayes nods gradually. Proceed, but if this kills someone, Private, you'll regret the Germans didn't find you first. By 10 a.m., Becker's container crews have cleared 3 passages through the Omaha Beach explosive field. Total losses, 0. Total explosives identified, 43. The 29th Infantry Division progresses through Becker's passages and secures a position beyond the defensive wall. Information travels rapidly in combat. By noon, sappers at Utah Beach are requesting containers and directions. By evening, British forces at Gold Beach are implementing the method. By midnight, Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force seeks to identify who created the container approach and why it is absent from the field manual. If you're discovering something new about World War II history, hit that subscribe button. We reveal these overlooked stories weekly, and 70% of viewers watching aren't subscribed yet. Help us achieve 500,000 subscribers by clicking below. On June 8, 1944, Private Becker is called to a headquarters conference in a requisitioned French agricultural building. Attending are Colonel Trudeau, the principal sapper who proclaimed rapid explosive identification impossible 4 weeks prior, alongside British demolition specialist Major Geoffrey Pike and 7 additional senior commanders. Trudeau begins with an inquiry. Private Becker, describe your container method. Becker, still coated in sand and salt, explains water exposes density variations. Concealed objects interrupt flow configurations. Visual identification surpasses tactile searching. It's elementary physics applied to a field challenge. Major Pike interrupts. This opposes established explosive identification theory. The pressure variation from water mass could activate sensitive triggers. You're describing an approach that should detonate explosives, not identify them. Respectfully, sir, it doesn't, Becker responds. I've applied it on 43 explosives, 0 detonations. Anecdotal evidence, Pike retorts, statistically insignificant. More significant than the 60% loss rate from sanctioned approaches, sir. The room explodes. 3 commanders begin shouting concurrently. Pike labels Becker's method dangerously reckless. A U.S. Army major contends that unauthorized field adaptations compromise military order. Someone mentions court-martial proceedings again. Colonel Trudeau raises his hand. The room becomes silent. Trudeau is a legend in the Corps of Engineers, a veteran of World War I, someone who constructed fortifications that withstood Ludendorff's spring campaign. When he speaks, everyone listens. Gentlemen, Trudeau states quietly, this private has resolved a challenge we couldn't resolve. His approach functions. I observed it functioning this morning. We can either court-martial him for exceeding our capabilities, or we can establish his method as standard operating procedure. I support the latter. Pike attempts to protest. Colonel, without appropriate testing procedures? Major Pike, Trudeau interrupts, we're amid the largest shore invasion in history. We lack time for testing procedures. We have time for what functions. Private Becker's approach functions, we're implementing it. Effective immediately, all sapper units will receive containers and instruction in water flow explosive identification. Inquiries? There are no inquiries. The conference concludes. Becker is elevated to corporal immediately and designated to instruct other sappers. Within 1 week, his method is being employed throughout the European combat zone. The information arrives rapidly. Between June 6 and June 30, 1944, Allied sapper units employing conventional probe approaches identify an average of 4.2 explosives hourly with a loss rate of 12%. Units employing Becker's container approach identify an average of 11.7 explosives hourly, with a loss rate of 1.3%. The calculations are striking. Becker's method is 2.8 times more rapid and 9.2 times more secure. During the initial month following D-Day, Allied forces eliminate roughly 6,000 explosives using the container approach. Statistical examination by the Army Corps of Engineers, issued in a confidential 1945 document, calculates the method preserved between 180 and 240 Allied lives in June 1944 exclusively. The approach extends beyond coastlines. In the hedgerows of Normandy, sappers employ containers to identify explosives concealed in roadways. In the forests of the Ardennes, they modify the method with melted snow. By August 1944, every Allied sapper battalion in France has received instruction in water flow identification. July 18, 1944, Saint-Lay, France. Sergeant Thomas Becker, he's been elevated twice more, commands an explosive clearance crew through a devastated village. German forces have withdrawn, but they've left surprises behind. The primary route into town contains explosives. Standard doctrine prescribes cautious probing, adequate time, acceptable losses. Becker's crew has 12 soldiers, 20 containers, and 4 hours before the 2nd Armored Division requires this route accessible. They operate in pairs, dispensing water, designating irregularities, verifying with cautious probes. In 3 hours and 40 minutes, they eliminate 62 explosives from a half-kilometer road section, 0 losses. Lieutenant Colonel James O'Neill, commanding officer of the 2nd Armored's Sapper Battalion, observes them operate. After the route is secured, he locates Becker and grips his hand. "Because of you," O'Neill states, "my soldiers are returning home after this conflict. Thank you." The method even influences German strategies. A captured Wehrmacht sapper officer, Hauptmann Klaus Richter, is questioned in August 1944. His statement, maintained in U.S. Army intelligence records, includes this declaration. "We observed American sappers using water to identify our explosives. This wasn't in our intelligence materials. We presumed they had created new electronic apparatus. When we discovered they were using containers, morale among our mine positioning crews diminished substantially. If the adversary can overcome our optimal defensive armament with ocean water and containers, what probability do we possess? We're able to investigate and distribute these remarkable stories because of viewers like you. If you wish to support independent history material, consider joining our Patreon. Link in the description." Now, back to Thomas Becker's story. The most significant confirmation arrives in September 1944 during Operation Market Garden. British sappers must eliminate explosives from the route to Arnhem. They're under sustained fire, operating against a time limit using Becker's approach. In 6 hours, they eliminate 127 explosives and lose 3 soldiers, a loss rate of 2.4%. Under conventional approaches, anticipated losses would have surpassed 30 soldiers. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, not recognized for commending American breakthroughs, references the container method in a confidential document to the War Office. The American water identification approach has proven invaluable. Recommend immediate implementation by all Commonwealth sapper units. By conflict's conclusion, Becker's method has been employed to eliminate roughly 40,000 explosives throughout Europe and the Pacific. The U.S. Army calculates it diminished sapper losses by 67% in explosive clearance missions. In human calculations, that's roughly 2,000 lives preserved by a farm youth with a container. The combat effectiveness transcends raw statistics. More rapid explosive clearance enables more rapid progression. More rapid progression means reduced time for adversaries to create new defensive arrangements. Military scholars attribute rapid explosive clearance enabled predominantly by Becker's approach with reducing the Normandy operation by roughly 4 to 6 days. 4 days in 1944 signifies thousands of lives preserved, millions of dollars in resources maintained, and momentum sustained when momentum matters critically. Thomas Becker receives the Bronze Star for Valor in October 1944. The acknowledgement states, for creating innovative explosive identification methods that preserved numerous Allied lives during combat missions in France. He's also granted the French Croix de Guerre and referenced in communications by British command. Becker doesn't attend the decoration ceremony. He's occupied eliminating explosives outside Aachen. Following the conflict, journalists seek to interview the individual who transformed explosive identification. Becker refuses. He returns to Iowa, assumes control of his father's dairy operation, and seldom discusses the conflict. His wife, Margaret, whom he marries in 1946, doesn't discover the container method until 1952, when a former sapper from the 146th visits their farm. Tom never referenced it. She tells a local newspaper in 1984 following Becker's death. He stated he simply performed his duty like everyone else. He didn't consider himself exceptional, but the military recalls. The container approach, formally titled Water Flow Mine Detection in a 1945 Army Field Manual, continues in the curriculum at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, where Army sappers train presently. Contemporary explosive identification has progressed. Ground-penetrating radar, metal detectors, robots, but water flow identification is still instructed as a contingency approach when technology malfunctions. In 2004, during missions in Iraq, a U.S. Army sapper unit discovered itself without operational metal detectors following an IED attack. They improvised with water bottles and Becker's 60-year-old method. They eliminated 17 explosives in 3 hours. The engagement document specifically acknowledges legacy water flow identification approaches created during WWII. Becker's breakthrough appears in technical textbooks as a demonstration in practical problem resolution. MIT incorporates it in their curriculum on innovative reasoning. The British Army's Royal School of Military Engineering exhibits a photograph of Becker with his container in their museum at Chatham, with a plaque stating simple solutions to complex problems. In 1994, on the 50th anniversary of D-Day, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers consecrated a memorial at Fort Beaver to sappers who perished in combat. At the memorial's foundation, there's a bronze container. The inscription states in memory of those who cleared the path, in honor of those who found a better way. Thomas Becker died in 1984, age 62, of a cardiac arrest while repairing a tractor. His obituary in the Des Moines Register referenced his military duty in one sentence. It didn't reference the container method. It didn't reference the lives preserved. It didn't reference that this Iowa farm youth who never completed secondary education, who possessed no technical credentials, who was designated to demolition duties by paperwork error, transformed military doctrine and preserved thousands of lives with ocean water and practical wisdom. The lesson isn't about containers. It's about challenging presumptions, particularly when those presumptions are causing fatalities. It's about the bravery to attempt something novel when everyone declares it's unattainable. It's about the importance of practical intelligence over academic credentials. It's about a 22-year-old private who witnessed his comrades perishing, declined to accept that their deaths were unavoidable, and determined a superior method. Sometimes the most significant breakthroughs don't originate from laboratories or universities. Sometimes they originate from someone with a container, positioned in the waves, observing water movement across sand and contemplating, there must be a superior method. Thomas Becker discovered that superior method. And because he did, 200 soldiers who should have perished at Omaha Beach returned home to their families instead.